Green Berets better watch out today. We're going full commando style.
I ate Green Berets for breakfast.
I actually prefer more of a bowl of oatmeal and a nice little mock draft to go with it. And that's what we're doing here today for the Washington Commanders. We're going to talk about this roster. What do they need to do? How do we get over the hump to get to the Super Bowl, which this was probably the most surprising team in all of football this season in a good way. So we're going to go through this roster, talk strengths and weaknesses. What do they need to do? Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, already been building a foundation here. And then we'll get into a 7-round mock draft with a free agency strategy as well. So let's dive into the roster. Start off with the offense and the offensive line. Up front, how do you protect Jaden Daniels, quarterback, who was under duress for a good chunk of the season? This offensive line has to get better. And that is a top priority for me as they head into this offseason. And with this tackle room, Andrew Wiley, Brandon Coleman, and Cornelius Lucas, who was rotating in there. I thought he was actually their best tackle out of the group. Now, we need to talk about Brandon Coleman, their third-round selection from TCU. Had his ups and downs this season, and I really do like him a lot. And he's somebody that I think could be a starting left tackle in the NFL, but at the same time, I would like to move him inside the guard. I think he'd be an immediate upgrade on the interior, that left guard position for Nick Allegretti. And if you had Allegretti say, look, let's move you over to right guard to start the season with the injury of Sam Cosmi, then that's something I think that they could do and upgrade the interior that way. Keep Allegretti as your swing guard going into next season, swing interior man. Brandon Coleman, though, the traits that I love with him is the athleticism, the second level stuff. Is already, like, he's up there with some of the better guys in the league. He's got the movement skills. He's got the size and the length profile, but he lost to the edge consistently. Speed to power. Those are things that maybe it's a technical thing. That's something he can work out. But when it comes to the footwork, I thought he did get a little skinny and maybe just struggled consistently getting out to the edge and covering those faster guys, the better edge rushers. And that is where my question would lie. Is that something that is correctable in his game? Do I think that he can get better in that? Absolutely. But at the same time, do I think he could do like Sam Cosmi, be an all-pro level guard if you moved him inside? Yes, I think that there is a lot of potential for him to reach that level of goal. Certainly has the talent, has the traits to do that. So that's going to be a question mark that ultimately Dan Quinn and this coaching staff, Cliff Kingsbury, is going to have to figure out what did they want to do. That is what I would do in this projection. So we're just going to kind of state that going forward. I'm going to be looking for a left tackle, or at least upgrading this tackle room in general, because I think they can use 2 new tackles possibly in this room. Andrew Wiley definitely could be looking to move on off of his contract after this season. Another topsy-turvy year for him. Maybe not as bad as it was in 2023, but overall just not very good. He also struggled with some speed to the edge, and just I think he could maybe even move inside the guard. It would be best beneficial for him to do that. Maybe if they wanted to keep him and have him cover for Sam Cosmi while he's out for half the season or whatever next year. Unfortunately, he had a late season injury. But that would be my view. Bring back Cornelius Lucas, bring in a free agent, and then also be looking in the draft to get some more help in here. Those are both areas they have to address with this offensive tackle room, making sure that we protect Jaden Daniels. To the interior of the offensive line, I would not be as worried about this if it weren't for the Sam Cosmi injury. That's where it puts a little bit more of a discussion on this, and we need to talk about what do we do, right? Because that is going to be serious. They're going to have to miss him for probably the entirety of the season with that ACL injury coming in January. That's going to be a timetable of 10 months at least, I'm going to say. So at earliest, you're talking November, December time period. That's why they're going to need a really good swing man there. My view on it is you move Brandon Coleman inside the guard, you pick up a tackle, have Allegretti swing over to right guard there, or even Coleman can swing over to right guard. I think he has experience on that right side going back to TCU. I'd have to double check on that. Nonetheless, like, you're going to need to figure that out interior. We're going to probably need to bring in a free agent. Could be another backup. Dieter is a free agent. I don't know if I'm looking to re-sign him or anything like that. Tyler Biadasz was probably one of the most consistent offensive linemen this entire season. I thought he did a great job at center position. Sam Cosmi, really, really good guard. I mean, he had his struggles at times too, just like this entire offensive line. But overall, I think they're in really good shape with Cosmi, with Biadasz, both of those guys under contract. Allegretti would be a guy that, in general, I would be looking to upgrade from. I think they need to add at least competition in the room with that injury to Cosmi. This is an area that we're going to have to address between free agency, between the draft, trying to get somebody in here to start. We wanted the tight end room. Zach Ertz, the everless, ageless wonder who has been continually playing at a super high level. He's not just a red zone threat. He definitely is a guy that is a full on tight end still. I mean, he's got some limitations with his age going forward. You're not going to want to play him out there all the time. He's not a full-time starter, but I do like Zach Ertz. I still think he's one of the better tight ends out there in the league. John Bates is one of the better blockers, tight end wise. He's not the greatest receiver, I'll say that, but he is a good blocker, an excellent blocker that can come in there. He can help pass protect. He can run block. I would like to keep both of those guys. I certainly would. It's going to come down to contract. It's going to come down to money. I would imagine neither is going to be super, super expensive or break the bank. And I know that Ertz has already said that he's kind of, wanted to come back. He wants to run it back and still believes he has plenty left in the tank. So if he wants to come back, which he's already said, I would bring him back. No problem about that, especially with Ben Sinnott. Still want to see what he comes along to let him develop a little bit more. Kansas State second round selection. I like him, and I think he'll develop into a really good tight end. He was just used more as a blocker this season, so we just need to see more with him. There's just not a grade that I can really put out of him. That's why it's a very subdued. I just can't really do a whole ton there because I haven't seen a ton of him as a receiver just yet. Nonetheless, I really liked him coming out of Kansas State, and I think he will be a good tight end in time. So and we'll see about Colston Yankoff, a former quarterback that they got UDFA as a tight end here. Let him develop too. Maybe you can see something out of him. In general, this is not an area that I'm going to be looking at in the draft too much since they invested with Ben Sinnott, bring back Zach Ertz, John Bates. That's really what I would say. This is more of a free agency priority than it is a draft need. And then we move on to the wide receiving room. This is more of a draft need than a free agency strategy, in my opinion, mainly because Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry, is a number one receiver, and at least you have your number one receiver. Now, the question comes down is who's that number two guy, right? Noah Brown. I love Noah Brown. It seems like wherever he goes, the quarterback just develops. Go to another rookie quarterback next season, they watch out. Injury question with Noah Brown is really the only reason why I would consider not re-signing him, and that is something that they have to look at, is that injury risk with him. He's been a little banged up through his career. So determining that contract, how much does he want? Because there's another team that would probably be willing to pay Noah Brown. He's a solid wide receiver. And then you got Omlad Zaccheaus, who's also been a really nice slot receiver for them. And I would like to bring him back, if nothing else. And same thing, Diami Brown, who had a bit of a playoff breakout. I don't know, at the end of the season, he came on out of nowhere. I don't know what happened there, but the light clicked on, and he was really thriving with him and Jaden getting on the same page. And as a deep threat, Diami Brown's got some speed. He looks really good. So I would bring back Diami Brown. I bring back Omlad Zaccheaus if you can. Even Jamison Crowder wasn't bad for them. I would let go of KJ Osborne personally, but Luke McCaffrey, you imagine he can step up, get a little bit better into next season. I think he could be a really good slot weapon for them. They're going to need a draft, though, here. And I lean towards draft over signing a guy in free agency, mainly because you're going to have to give Terry McLaurin an extension. And his extension is probably going to be in the ballpark of $27 million plus. So if you want to pay another wide receiver, then that to me just wouldn't make sense, because then you're looking at paying McLaurin $27 million plus maybe an outside free agent, $17 million, 15 plus, because that's what they go out in the market. Even if you go get like a Slayton, he's probably going to get $12 to $15 million on the open market. So that's the area where I'd say try to get a little cheaper. Go out and spend a little bit of a draft pick on that, maybe a day two selection on a receiver with some size. That is really what I'm looking at to view in this wide receiving room. Let's talk about the running back position, and it starts with Brian Robinson Jr. I love Brian Robinson Jr. He's a touchdown machine. My brother had him in fantasy. He's like, yeah, every single week he scores a touchdown. He is a good running back, but here's my one knock on this running back room. Do they have that true number one running back here? No, they don't. Do you need a true number one running back? No, you don't. It was a little inconsistent in terms of the run game this season. You got Robinson. Eckler's a great change of pace back. Still a really good receiver. And on those outside plays, he's one of the better in the business at that. But once again, he's getting a little bit older now. You got Jeremy McNichols, who's a free agent. Had a good season, actually. Chris Rodriguez, I still like him coming out of Kentucky. He's a bowling ball out there. His contact balance is some of the best out there that I watched. So it just comes down to that question. Can you upgrade in this room? Yes. Do I want to spend or I need to spend a early pick on that? Probably not. Okay, so with some of the other needs, if they had a more complete roster, then I could justify spending a second round, third round pick on a running back here. But with Robinson under contract, with Eckler under contract, Rodriguez will be brought back on the cheap. He's a restricted free agent. So this is an area that I would put as a BPA approach. If somebody is on the board you cannot pass up on, sure. However, at the same time, this is not an area that they have to be looking at upgrading. It's a solid room that could get better. Now, this is a room that doesn't need to get better. You got your number one quarterback. You got your franchise quarterback, Jaden Daniels. Oh my goodness, I got to apologize to Jaden Daniels. I had him ranked lower on my board. I look like an idiot, man. I feel like an idiot. Jaden Daniels, insane, unbelievable rookie season. I mean, not just a rookie season. He was up there with an MVP conversation. The only reason I don't have him as an elite grade, just because I don't like to give rookies elite grades, but I was very tempted to give Jaden Daniels an elite grade because he was arguably a top 3 quarterback in the playoffs in the end of the season. Easy. I don't think even that's a conversation. Him, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen were the best quarterbacks in the playoffs, in my opinion. And then he was up there with Joe Burrow overall with the top 5 quarterbacks at the end of the season. I even put him over Mahomes at the end of the year anyway. Jaden Daniels, really, really good rookie season. Let's continue to build on that. Let's knock on wood. Everything goes. And you got Marcus Mariota, who is a free agent. I would love to bring him back. He has expressed his opinion to try to return as well. But once again, there are teams out there like the Raiders who could try to go and see Marcus Mariota as a bridge quarterback. So that's the only thing here. He could get paid somewhere else to be a bridge quarterback. They're going to have to pony up a little bit to keep him around. You're talking about $7-8 million for a good backup. I still think that's worth that, and I do think they're going to value that. And what Marcus Mariota brings, he is one of the more clutch. He's not one of the more clutch quarterbacks in general, but he's a clutch backup to have. So if you can keep him around, I would definitely do that. You have Sam Hartman. Maybe he can be the number 3 guy for Jeff Driscoll. No matter what, though, they're going to need a solid backup. If Marcus Mariota is let go, maybe bring back Jeff Driscoll if that were the case. But overall, if you can, bring back Marcus Mariota, and this is all you need to do at this quarterback position. Talk about the defense, though, now, and start off with those edge rushers. What do we do with the edge position? Well, there's a lot of possible scenarios for this, right? I know there's some rumors swirling around right now. Woo! We got the whirlpool action, get the laundry going. None of that folding action because we got Dante Fowler Jr. in here. You got Dorrance Armstrong, one of the better free agent signings out there this season. Armstrong was very impressive this year, and he continued to build on in a full-time role. The only thing here was Dante Fowler is a free agent. He, to me, is a great situational pass rusher. Now, if you're asking him to be a full 3-down guy, I don't love that. His run defense, not overly good, okay? They need an edge setter. They need somebody in here that can stop the run. In general, their defensive line has to do a better job stopping the run. While it's not something that I say, you have to find a run stuffing nose tackle or anything like that round 1. And we'll talk about the interior in a little bit. But they do need to improve the run defense. Like, you can't be horrible in it. So that's why I'm saying they're going to have to improve off the edge on the interior. Let's find somebody who can be a little bit better in that department. Fowler, I would like to bring him back. We'll see what that contract looks like. If they need to bring in somebody else in this edge room, not just for pass rush, but also stopping the run. Clearly a need for them. Cleveland Farrell, unfortunately, got injured early in the season. You got Jalen Holmes as a good backup. We'll see who they decide to bring back there. I think Holmes would be a little cheaper, but Farrell certainly could be another candidate be brought back, not super expensive. We'll be looking at this in the draft, free agency. Got to upgrade this. I see it as more of a draft type of need or possibly a rumor type of trade. So we'll keep an eye on all those things. Let's talk about the interior, though. That goes hand in hand with this interior we was talking about. They struggled stopping the run, and that was a big problem for them. You got Jonathan Allen, who was dealing with his own injuries. I thought he was a gladiator, though, this season. I think what he brings, too, is a leadership role. I still think he is the best interior player that they have. Deron Payne, to me, is more the guy that I would be looking to move on. If I had to choose one of these guys to move on from, it would be Deron Payne. It's a little painful to say that, of course, and it doesn't mean any regrets. Like, I think Payne is still a really good player. He's a young guy, too. He's, coming into the prime of his career. However, with that contract, paying both of these guys the type of money, it would be easier to move off from Jonathan Allen. And they could even move off from both of them. Now, I wouldn't do that. The turnover would just be too much. But if there was a guy that I would pick to move on from, it would be Deron Payne. Contract-wise, Allen is a little easier to move on. Maybe they give him an extension to lower that cap hit and it'd be a win-win scenario. You got Jerzon Johnny Newton, a second-round selection. He just needs to get stronger. He just looked a little weak out there as a rookie. I think he'll develop. I do like Jerzon Newton, and I still think he's going to be a good football player. If nothing else, a serviceable backup in time. Just need defensive tackle is a position that you need grown man strength, and that was one question with Johnny Newton coming out of there. I loved his hands out of Illinois, but the strength profile, the size profile is a little bit more of a limiting factor, and that's why I see him as more of a year 2, year 3 guy. But I still think he's going to be a good football player, so I wouldn't hit the panic button on Johnny Newton. It just comes down to they need to find a nose tackle in there. They need to find somebody that can stop the run. And luckily, finding nose tackles or one techs aren't super expensive or are not super high value in the draft. So we can find somebody late in the draft, and we can find somebody in free agency that won't break the bank. On to the linebacker position, you got B-Wags and Frankie Louvu. This starting core was excellent. B-Wags, who I fully expect him to be back, as long as he wants to play, which it seems like he wants to play again. Him and the connection with Jaden Daniels, this organization, I'd be shocked if he goes somewhere else. I really would be, unless they just say, look, we're not going to pay you, which would make any sense to me. They're going to bring back Bobby Wagner. So I fully expect him to be back in that commando uniform next season. And they got Frankie Louvu, who was also a bit of a commando himself. This guy is exactly what Dan Quinn looks for. These type of hybrid players that can play a little edge rusher, a little undersized, but just an explosive monster that can just do a lot of things and a lot of good things too. So, I mean, this linebacking core is really good with these two guys. It just comes down to the future because Bobby Wagner is getting a little bit older, and I would imagine he's going to get 1-year deals going forward until he retires. So it's just like, do they feel confident in Jordan McGee? Also kind of like a jack of all trades, hybrid player, he was actually a former quarterback, but he's an undersized guy that's got some speed to him and can play a multitude of roles. So, like, do you feel good about the development there? 5th-round selection? Absolutely. I think he could be a rotational player for them. You got Mykal Walker, I imagine they can bring back on the cheap. Same thing with Nick Bellore, special teams ace. So I'm not super worried about bringing some of those guys back. It just comes down to who's going to be that future Mike linebacker in there with Bobby Wagner getting a little bit older. This could be a draft and develop somewhere area, or you could just see what you have in Jordan McGee too. In general, though, I would just say bring back Bobby Wagner. You got Frankie Louvu. See what we have in Jordan McGee, and then see if we can draft somebody at the end or pick up a free agent just to fill some depth. For right now, though, this is not a huge priority. With some of the other areas that they have right now, I don't think this is a huge, it is a BPA approach. If somebody falls to you that you can't patch up on, that you think is going to be a 3-down workhorse for the future for them, then sure, that would make sense. But overall, I think there are some other priorities like the defensive line or maybe the secondary that we have to fill a little bit first. So let's talk about the secondary now and start off with this cornerback room. Marshawn Lattimore, Mike Sanderstill, Noah Igbenogany, those are your 3 guys going into next season. Well, Igbenogany is a free agent. I think they bring him back on the cheap. That would be my guess, especially with the way he played in this line. He was pretty dang good. So if you can bring him back, I don't think he'd be super expensive. At least gives you some good depth. Now, the question comes down to with Marshawn Lattimore, him in that contract, and they gave him a 3rd-round selection to get him. That is the thing. Do they look at extending him this season? Do they just play out his contract, which is like an $18 million cap hit? Those are the big question marks with Marshawn Lattimore. I fully expect him, when he is healthy, to be a top tier. I mean, he's still one of the better man-to-man coverage corners. Now, you can point to at the end of the season, struggling in that Philadelphia game, A.J. Brown. But at the same time, I mean, it's a tough matchup for anybody. I still think Lattimore is one of the premier one-on-one corners, even at his age, and I expect him to be very good for the next couple of seasons. So giving him a couple-year extension could be an option. Maybe it's safer to just say, hey, let's play it out one more year, see what we got, and then we can give you an extension after that. So that's just something where Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, get on the same page and figure that all out. I would keep Lattimore, though. I know people talk about, oh, you can move on from him. I think it's not worth it. Give up that 3rd-round selection. I just think he's better than what you can get out there right away. Lattimore is a really good football player. And then you got Mikey Sanders still emerging as a rookie, playing phenomenal, got better and better as the weeks went on. I thought he got snubbed a little bit from the top 5 defensive rookie of the year. He certainly earned it, in my opinion. But Sanders still they could also view him as a long-term slot. So if they wanted to let go of Noah Igbenogany and then bring in an outside cornerback and have Mikey play more of an inside role as a slot, that's really kind of where I think his prime position would be. But I thought he played good on the outside, and I'm not really like overly worried about it. Yeah, he led up some contested catches on the outside. Like, that's going to be known with a guy his size. But he was clearly an upgrade over a Benjamin St-Juste or a Michael Davis, etc. So, and not to knock on any one of those guys. I think St-Juste will go somewhere else and maybe get a better opportunity for him. Maybe it'll be a win-win scenario. Davis has been a solid backup and whatnot. So I don't want to harp on those guys. I think they'll look at finding some more depth, though, for the long haul and finding some backup. This is more of a draft need, maybe a mid-round pick, and then also a free agency need, some depth behind these guys. Finally, finishing up the roster with the safety room. And the safety room, Quan Martin, Jeremy Chin. Now, ideally, yes, I would love to add maybe like a free safety in here, somebody who can be a little bit better in coverage. Quan Martin's still developing in that regard. I love him around the box and, what he's able to make plays, and I think he's a really good blitzer too. And Jeremy Chin's a Dan Quinn special. I mean, let's just face it. I mean, the dude is that versatile, big guy that can come in there, play up against tight ends, in the box, that hybrid role. He's a perfect scheme fit for Dan Quinn. I would highly recommend bringing him back. I think they're going to really try to do that. Now, there'll be some competition. I think he's going to try to test free agency. We'll see what type of contract he ends up getting, but I would imagine it's a couple year type of deal somewhere in that $6 to $8-9 million range. And I do think he's worth that as long as it's not super high over that. Now, Percy Butler hasn't quite worked out for them and what they drafted him to be, that rangy free safety type. Maybe they continue to develop him. He is going to be an accelerated cap hit, so that's something to consider. He could be a cut candidate as well. Maybe they bring in a free agent to fill that void. Darrick Forrest, really, I like Darrick Forrest. He's been a little banged up through his career. Big, tough-nosed hitter and a guy that definitely brings some mentality there. Tyler Owens has the potential, though, to fill some of that void with his size profile and athletic traits. He could be a really nice backup. He's already a great special teamer. Jeremy Reeves, good special teamer as well. Dominique Hampton could fill another big, maybe if they let go of Jeremy Chin, then Dominique Hampton. Like, that's what I imagine. They drafted Hampton to possibly be a Jeremy Chin replacement. I just don't know how they feel about that, and that's why I would still recommend bringing back Jeremy Chin. And Hampton could be that rotational player. He's a fifth-round selection, so I'm not going to take that too much. We'll see. I liked him coming out of Washington. There's some limitations with him. I think he's a little tight in the hips, but he's got some explosiveness that they can use. We'll see how that all works out. The only area that I would be looking at upgrading here is possibly bringing in a free safety, free agency, draft, all those sort of things in the table for them. It's not like an early need, though, in my opinion. Like, they don't need to spend a first, second, third round pick on that. Time, though, to get into free agency as we build closer and closer to the draft. Let's start off with the team cuts and then also trade here. One trade I throw in with Deron Payne. And let's start off with the team cuts though here. Andrew Wiley, Percy Butler. I'm going to let go of both of these guys. That's going to save us over $10 million, actually around $11 million, which just adds to our cap even more. But those guys, Andrew Wiley, I think we can upgrade there. Percy Butler, I think we can also upgrade a little bit in that free safety role. And then Deron Payne, I just had to make the move. There'll be plenty of arguments out there. Do you let go of Jonathan Allen? Do you trade him or do you trade Deron Payne? I prefer to keep Allen. That's just where I'm at, and I'll trade Payne. I think there's more trade value too with letting go of Deron Payne, and that allows us to save $9 million this season. And it also, by eating some of that contract, it allows us to maybe get a fourth, fifth round selection. There's definitely value with Deron Payne. Now, I'm not going to add any picks into this draft, just to trying to keep it realistic. I don't know if this trade's going to happen. I don't want to speculate, but this is a scenario that I could see is like, maybe them trading up with that fifth round pick to getting like a fourth round selection and then also receiving maybe a fourth or fifth round pick next year. Or it could possibly be a fourth, fifth round selection next year as long as like a comp pick that goes into that and et cetera. Like there's a lot of possibilities on this trade. Maybe it's 2 picks. That's kind of what I'm thinking with a Deron Payne, 2 day 3 type of picks. Or a trade up type of scenario where they move up a little bit with one of their picks and they get another later pick to go along with that. But overall, like that's what I'm viewing to get a little bit cheaper there on that interior of the defensive line. And then we're going to go ahead and fill that right in with an extension with Jonathan Allen. We're going to give him a 2-year extension, $34 million, 17 guaranteed on that with a $15 million bonus. That allows us to lower his cap hit because you take those 3 years. They could also add void years if they wanted to make this cap savings even bigger. But I'm just going to keep it simple. Going to be 3 years added, or it's 2 years added on. 3 years, that bonus that we can divide, that'll convert over, divide that of the contract. The contract lingo is messing me up right now, but it allows us to save $5 million, 15 divided by 3, and keeps it simple, right? It's trying to keep it simple math for me. And that gets us down to, or gets us up to over $100 million to spend. Now, it'll go quick. We got a lot of re-signs that we have to take care of with the team portion. Marcus Mariota, I prioritize bringing him back. Maybe it's a little bit more than that, maybe $8, $9, $10 million. I think he's worth it, though. Really good backup. Always important to have a good backup. That's my philosophy on it. You're only as good as your backup with any position, especially the quarterback spot. If Jaden Daniels needs to go down hopefully doesn't need to go down, but if he gets injured for a couple of games, then Marcus Mariota can step in there. And he's also just a great backup to have in the locker room. And what he's been able to development-wise with Jaden Daniels, I prioritize that even more. And then we do let go of some tough guys here. Jeremy McNichols, Jamison Crowder, KJ Osborne, let go of some of those guys. I think McNichols might get paid elsewhere. Omalad Zaccheaus, though, I want to bring him back. Same thing with Diami Brown, with him stepping up at the end of the season, showing off in the playoffs. Keep him $2 million, both of those guys. Zach Ertz, John Bates, excellent tight ends to have here. And Ertz earned that contract raise from me, $6 million. John Bates also earned a raise, $2 million, great blocker. And then speaking of great blocker, Cornelius Lucas, 1 year, $3.5 million, earning a raise from his 2.9 or 2.8 that he got in the last season. Maybe even, hey, I'm cool giving him up to like $5 million. He's definitely earned that. He's probably more of a rotational guy. I don't want him to be a full-time starter, but if you have a rookie in there and you say, hey, look, Lucas, we need you to start early on, I'm cool with that. Like, he played excellent. He was, like I said, their best left tackle, right tackle. I think he really is right now their best tackle in the room. We're going to upgrade that, though, right now. Now, I'm going to go ahead and let go of the rest of the offensive line and Trent Scott and Michael Dieter. I think we can maybe find a little more between the draft and free agency there. And then on the defense side of the ball, I'm going to let go of Cleveland Farrell. I'm going to bring back some depth, though, here with a lot of these guys. Dante Fowler Jr., $5.5 million. And then you got Jalen Holmes, should be solid veteran depth with a lot of these guys like Sheldon Day, veteran minimum type of contract. Bobby Wagner, 1 year, $7 million. We'll give him a raise. Nick Ballore, good special teams ace. Mikael Walker, depth there. Noah Igbenogany, $1.5 million, a raise for him. He can be our starting slot. We can have Mikey play on the outside still with Marshawn Lattimore. At least you go into the offseason with your 3 starters. We can add in the draft. We can add in free agency for those for some more help. Jeremy Chin, I decided to extend him. Maybe they feel confident with Dominic Hampton. I just don't know about that. Maybe they bring somebody else in, but I'm going to extend Jeremy Chin. I thought he would earn the contract, 3 years, $21 million. And he doesn't break the bank either. And I don't really feel like he will break the bank. And then we'll finish it off with Tress Way and Austin Seibert for some more, competition with Seibert. They're going to have to add to that room. Let's just be real. They're going to have to add that. But Tress Way, you got to bring Tress Way back. A stud, a beast, maybe a Hall of Famer. Let's go. But man, he's a really good. He's still a solid punter too. But you got to bring Tress Way. But Seibert, as I talked about, that's something they'll also have to add in camp. Maybe get a UDFA guy or something like that. Bring in somebody cheap to compete with Seibert. Now let's go on to the outside free agent signings. Here we go. The big signing. Ronnie Stanley from Baltimore coming in here. 2 years, $44 million, 22 average. It's a lot of money, but you're going to have to lure him away from Baltimore. And hey, he comes to a team that can win right now, and he gives a Super Bowl opportunity to this Washington Commanders team, protecting Jaden Daniels. Goes from one scrambling quarterback to another. Baltimore's cap is a little strapped, so we'll see if they can bring back Ronnie Stanley. I think there's a really good chance that Stanley does hit the open market with a big pay, one last big payday possibly, or maybe even 2. We'll see. He's still not like Super Bowl, but the injury risk with him is the only question that you have, and that's maybe the reason why Baltimore too would let him go. Overall, though, he comes in, adds stability to protect Jaden Daniels on that left side and really helps him out. Also going to sign Sam Mustipher. Just going to add some more depth on that interior. $1.2 million on like a vet minimum deal. Defensively wise, our big signing here, Tadaro Slayton from Green Bay, 2 years, $8 million. Remember, run defense guys aren't super expensive. They don't break the bank. Slayton, $4 million average, I think is very fair for a very good run defender. And that's what he's going to be. He's going to be an early down run defender. You got Johnny Newton developing. We brought back Jonathan Allen, and we got him an extension, of course. I mean, he was already under contract, but we gave him an extension. So you have Slayton, Allen, and Newton, and then Day, too. So those guys will be your rotation of 4. And then we got Adoree Jackson coming here, 1 year, $3 million. Still a solid cornerback that can play on the outside if you wanted. You could move Mikey inside of the slot a little bit, and injuries arise. You always need a good backup. So Adoree Jackson comes in here on a $3 million deal to help fill some of that. Elijah Campbell, also some good depth. He's a solid backup safety for the Dolphins, and he can do the same here, has some good range. And then we also have to budget in $9 million for their draft picks. Now, you're looking at the cap and you're saying to yourself, well, you left out $21 million there. What are you doing with that $21 million? We could use that to go sign a good edge rusher or go sign another cornerback. Wait, what are you trying to mess with us here? Hold the phone. Hold it. I'm holding the phone. Give me a minute here. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's talk about the roster real quick. Going into the draft, what do we need to do? So it starts off with drafting wise, we still need offensive tackle. Like Cornelius Lucas, I feel good he can start early on, but he is getting a little bit older now. We need to think about the future. We need to add in at least somebody in there. We're going to be doing that. That's an early need in the draft. Let's figure out this offensive line once and for all. I love Brandon Coleman sliding into that left guard position. I think he could be a Pro Bowl type of all-pro talent there. Sam Cosmi will be up for a little bit, but Nick Allegretti can step in and play at that right guard position if need be. And then wide receiver-wise, I'm going to be looking for a receiver here. This is another day 2 possible need for them. Even first-round selection certainly could be in play for this team, depending on how the board falls. Tight end, I think they're in a good position. We brought back Bates and Ertz. Quarterback-wise, we're good to go. And then running back-wise, it's ideally, yes, I could upgrade there. But at the same time, I don't think they have to spend an early pick on this. This is a late-round throw to possibly upgrade here, or maybe more of a next-year type of need for them. Defensively-wise, I'm going to say we add in some more cornerback depth in this draft, maybe a mid-round selection to be able to develop some young talent. And then on the defensive line, absolutely, edge rusher, huge priority here. Number 1 priority. We're gonna address that. That's a first, second round need. Interior defense line, still add some more depth. I feel okay with Slayton coming in here to be a good run defender. Newton, year number 2. Allen's back on an extension, fully healthy. That'll be huge. Sheldon Day, we also brought back. Let's add somebody else to help fill that run defense role. Linebacker-wise, could be a late-round throw just to build out some more depth. I want to see what they have in Jordan McGee as well. Safety-wise, things should be good to go here. Draft time, and here we go. Now you're thinking to yourself, who is he going to get? There's a player that is, I think, nobody's talking about right now in this draft. The most underrated prospect in this draft right now. It's Myles Garrett. And of course he's underrated because no, he's not in the draft. But I mean, Myles Garrett is the best pick that I feel like they can get at this pick number 29. And there's some good players that will be available. I have no doubt about that. If they can't trade for Myles Garrett, if the package is too steep, then don't do it. But I think with the trade package here, what I'm looking to give up is a first rounder, obviously pick number 29, and also a first rounder next year, and then a comp pick. Okay, a conditional pick, should I say. So that conditional pick would be like a 4th rounder that turns into a 3rd rounder if he plays, let's say, 65% of the snaps, which he probably would do, of course. It's Myles Garrett, barring an injury. But it at least covers you that for an injury risk scenario. So it'd be 2 first rounders and a conditional 3rd round pick, depending on play time and things like that. But Myles Garrett, what he brings to the table as an all-pro, the best edge rusher in the NFL, you pair him on that defensive line. Now you have Dante Fowler Jr. as a situational pass rusher, Dorrance Armstrong opposite of Myles Garrett. That would be an elite group. This automatically elevates this defensive line to elite status. He's a beast. He's still in the prime of his career. I'm not worried about a slowdown with Myles Garrett. I really am not. He's still an athletic specimen out there that consistently wins. I'm taking him here if he is available for the Commanders to get, as long as the price is right. And yes, shout out Bob Baker. Let's go. We just won a new car. We just won a new Myles Garrett out here. And then we go on to round number 2. Emory Jones, right tackle from LSU. We're going to go ahead, and he's going to be a great developmental right tackle that could even be a day 1 starter for them. He's super powerful. The pop on contact. I mean, yes, you do worry about him a little bit with losing some speed. I thought he looked excellent, though. He looked a little bit faster at the Senior Bowl than he did at LSU. He looked like he lost a little bit of weight, looks a little slimmer, a little trimmer. And he looked very good in his pass sets. That was the thing that I was a little worried about. How is he going to look in the one-on-ones? He looked excellent. He lost 1 rep in the practice session to Shamar Stewart with some speed. But besides that, I thought he was locked down at that right tackle position with the one-on-ones in practice sessions. Was really doing a good job. You put him over there competing with Cornelius Lucas as your starting right tackle. You have Ronnie Stanley in free agency. Make sure we're protecting your quarterback. On to round number 3, and we're going Elijah Manor from Stanford, the wide receiver, big, fast, physical wide receiver that's going to be in here competing with Dyami Brown for that other outside wide receiver position. Hey, if Dyami Brown comes out and it's not a fluke, he just starts winning and is that team's number 2, then I'm all for that. I still want to add more competition in that just in case Elijah Manor as another big play threat on the outside for Jaden Daniels. And fits with that deep ball that Jaden Daniels is so good layering those throws. Here's another guy that I was super impressed watching at the Senior Bowl. I'm going to have to go back and watch some film on this guy, but Brandon Adams, UCF safety, him and McWilliams, both UCF guys have some serious potential. This guy's a little bit longer. He's a little bit bigger than McDaniels and has all the traits to go on the outside, play press man coverage. He has that length profile, the size, and the coverage ability, sticky coverage. The one-on-ones, he looked excellent in that regard. So he's just going to be a draft and develop prospect for them. I mean, he's not a perfect prospect by any means. He's a little high-hipped and whatnot. Overall, though, I think in the 5th round, he makes a lot of sense for them to go out and draft and develop with his traits to be a really possible number 2 outside starting corner. If you viewed Mikey Sanders still as more of a inside slot cornerback, if they want to do that, or even if they don't re-sign Marshawn Lattimore after the season, maybe Brandon Adams can develop and be that outside guy for the future. And then their next pick, Cameron Jackson, another guy that kind of came on from nowhere for me in the one-on-ones. He looked a lot more explosive than I thought he was for a big man his size. Now, he needs to get better with his leverage, just like with Deone Walker, what we were saying. He struggles at times with the leverage. That is going to be an issue being 6'6", almost 6'7". He's going to have to work on that. But he's going to be a space eater, another dude that can develop into a high-quality run defender, just eat up blocks. So that's really what I'm looking here in the 6th round with his size and his upside to be that guy on that interior. He's going to be a 5th guy early on that maybe year 2, year 3 can develop into that backup, maybe even a starter, depending, of course. You never know if he can hit, but as more of a rotational guy. And then we go on to Trey Stewart, Jacksonville State, man, running back. He's got some speed, man. He can be a little versatile running back for them. A little Austin Eckler understudy. That's kind of what I'm looking at here. Had a big season, maybe a one-year wonder, but hey, I think it's worth taking a chance on. He certainly showed some capabilities there at Jacksonville State. Clay Webb's also got to keep an eye out from Jacksonville State. They got a couple of prospects this year. Anyway, just trying to fill out some running back depth in the room. And then finally, Greg Penn III, a linebacker prospect, maybe a little underrated linebacker prospect. Certainly has the intangibles and the know-how. I think he's a solid athlete too, not an elite athlete by any standards, but he's got some good size to him and can be a great linebacker that, hey, linebacker's a position that you can find late in the draft, and him developing behind Bobby Wagner for a season, sign me up for that, or a season or two, a couple of seasons, that'd be great. And it's definitely adding some more depth to the linebacking room. But that's going to do it here for the draft. Let's go ahead and recap everything up. Obviously, coaching-wise, what a tremendous job. Adam Peters, new ownership, Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, just this whole staff in general. A credit where credit is due. You do not see, this is type of stuff that every offseason dream, like as a Jets fan, this is what I would dream up. This is stuff that just doesn't happen. So credit to you guys. You guys well earned it. Washington Commanders fans have been patient. You got your franchise quarterback. There's a lot of things they need to do, though, and it starts with the offensive line. They got to improve it. Hopefully, we did a good enough job with getting Ronnie Stanley in free agency. We had Emory Jones in the draft. Cornelius Lucas can start day one if we need to. Yes, Nick Algrady's going to have to start over there for Sam Cosmi. We moved Brandon Coleman inside to guard. I think he could be an all-pro level guard with time, with potential, just like Sam Cosmi is. Now, wide receiver-wise, that was my number 2 priority, was getting another playmaker in here. Alec Ayumanor certainly can add competition with Diami Brown. We brought back with Omalad Zacchaeus too. Luke McCaffrey heading into year number 2. I think he can get more involved. We added another running backs for some depth. So hopefully enough playmakers for Jaden Daniels, but offensive line, you cannot let this be a situation where, yes, of course, he can get out because he's a little Houdini. He can get out of those sacks and stuff like that. But we cannot let this be an RG3 situation all over again. We have to protect Jaden Daniels. We may need to make sure that he is protected. That is my number 1 priority here. Defensively wise, I think defensive line was the number 1 priority for me, and we did that. Adding in Myles Garrett, all pro. Yes, you had to give up 2 first-rounders and a conditional 3rd-round pick in my projection. It might be more, it might be less, who knows? Probably at least that, but it's worth it. You bring him in there. He's an immediate dominance wrecker. I think he has another 4 years of dominance in him, or at least high-level play in him, maybe 2 years of dominance and 2 years after that of good play. And then Dorrance Armstrong. So that's your 2, beast starters. Dante Fowler Jr. works into more of a rotational role with Holmes, Jean Baptiste, etc. Jones, maybe Valimi Fehoko can do something down the line too. But that's building on an edge room that I can get happy about. And then on the interior defense, add some more run defense with Teradell Slayton from the Packers. He may be the starter for them, and Newton works in as a rotational guy, maybe a long-term starter for them. Sheldon Day back, Cameron Jackson as a late-round throw. Linebacker-wise, didn't need to do a whole ton, but I did add some more depth with Greg Penn. Hey, it never hurts to take a late-round swing at the linebacker position. That's what I say, because linebacker is a position you can find those late-round gems at. And then at cornerback, we added somebody in the draft with Brendan Adams to develop maybe behind Marshawn Lattimore for a season or 2, whatever, right? Just add more competition on the outside, and especially if they wanted Mikey to play inside for the long haul. But I brought back Noah Egbagmi since he looked decent there in the slot and certainly can fill in there. Adoree Jackson has some more depth on the outside too. And then we added Elijah Campbell as some depth at the safety position. So that's going to do it here for the Washington Commanders for their mock draft overall offseason overhaul. Let me know what you think about it. Agree or disagree. What would you do differently? Do you hate it? Would you not want to do the Myles Garrett trade? So there are a lot of scenarios that they can do. But anyway, let me know what you think. I hope you guys have a cool day. I'll talk to you later.